Now, Dr. Stephen Thomas joins us now from New York. He is the head of infectious disease at State University of New York, Upstate Medical University. Doctor, thanks so much for coming in on the show. Now, I do want to start with asking you, what do you make of Trump's vaccine program? How realistic is that we will get the vaccine by the end of year?
I think it's very realistic that we can develop a vaccine, but when you're developing a vaccine, you have to prove two main things. One, that it is safe, and two, that it does what it's supposed to do, which in this case would be to protect people from the disease caused by SARS-CoV-2. And that process, it takes time because there are multiple steps that you have to go through. Certain steps you can do in parallel, certain steps you can take a little bit of financial risk. But you really can't risk the safety of the public. And so, although I think a vaccine is it's possible and it's going to happen, it still, I think, is going to take at least 12 to 18 months to go through that process, to manufacture enough vaccine, and then to deploy that vaccine and to make sure that people get vaccinated.
Now, in your paper a couple of years ago, you predicted the pandemic in some way. Now, if experts like you warned us, why we were so unprepared? And why is this taking so long to get vaccine up and ready?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of many people that have been writing for a long time about the fact that the planets could align and we could have a situation like we have with COVID-19. So I'm not unique in that aspect. And I'm not sure why people have, people in positions of power, meaning people who can fund programs, have largely either ignored or have not really acted in an aggressive way to put the infrastructure in place that's required to first identify that an event is happening and then to quickly respond, to that information. It's very much, pandemic preparedness is very much a team sport, and so it requires people across different sectors to be constantly working together and communicating at all times. And it's just very difficult if there isn't political will and if there isn't financing and if there really is not focus on that goal to make it happen.
And doctor, some of the states in the U.S. have already started with reopening, with easing the restrictions. How dangerous is this? Is it time for this? Having in mind, the vaccine is still not ready and the number of cases is still rising in the U.S.
That's a very good question. I mean, we are in a pandemic, right? So the entire world is having to deal with SARS-CoV-2 transmission and having to deal with the disease that it causes. But infectious diseases are also very much a local phenomenon. And so, what is happening downstate, so I'm in the center of New York State, what's happening where I live is different than what's happening down in New York City. So I think when you think about the risks of opening, the risks are not uniform across any particular area. I do believe that this is something that we're not going to live through this. We have to learn to live with it, and so we have to find what is the balance between risk mitigation and the balance between what we have to do as a society to remain functional and to not take on the other risks of economic shutdown and people not working and the impacts of that. So I think it's very much a local situation. People have to determine what's going on in their environment. They have to make their own risk assessment, and then they really have to go in a very low and slow fashion with periods of reassessment of where they are.
Okay, thanks so much for your insight, Dr. Stephen Thomas, live for us from New York.